Good morning. You're with the Veterans Impact Show. I'm Jim Blythe, U.S. Navy veteran. Joining me, the one and only U.S. Marine Chuck Wright. Knows how to beat the air into submission with a helicopter. Welcome aboard, Chuck.
Hey, listen, this is a lot of fun. I've probably said it now. Our Facebook audience is getting tired of hearing it, but we are in a new studio, doing this in a new way, and hopefully we're going to see a significant increase in the quality of the show. This is a very important show to me, and I am honored to bring on a man that I call friend, although you'd never know it to hear some of our back and forth, but Junior Ortiz. And Junior is a retired Marine Corps colonel. He's got an incredible military background, but we're going to start off talking about something else. We're going to talk about, so the mission of our show is Charlie Mike. And basically that's a euphemism, if you will, for continue the mission. And one of the reasons we have Junior on is because since he left the Marine Corps, I think he's actually worked harder for our veterans, for our military. But we're going to talk about something I'm very passionate about, and that is carry the load. And you will have an opportunity to join us as soon as we get the technical parts set up. We're going to have a Veteran Impact Show team on carry the load. And the mission of carry the load, well, you know what? I'm going to introduce Colonel Ortiz. Welcome to the show. And Junior, why don't you talk a little bit about carry the load?
Well, good morning, everybody. I appreciate you. When I was asked to get together with Chuck and Jim, my idea was, we were just going to have some coffee and kind of chill out and tell lies to each other and everything else. But
we're going to do that
honored,
too.
I'm honored to be with you all. Obviously, carry the load is a very, very, very dear and near to my heart. As you all know, Carry the Load is a nonprofit organization, and we provide different and active ways for all Americans to honor the sacrifices of our military, our veterans, our first responders, and of course their families. We started in 2011 with the mission just to restore the true meaning of Veterans Day, and it's grown to honoring our nation's heroes
Memorial
every
Day.
Single day of the year.
Yeah, the mission is actually to restore the true meaning of Memorial Day.
Exactly.
Jim's rubbing off on you.
Well,
Veterans Day, Memorial Day, and you know what? That's a great point, or a great place. Talk about the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day, because that gets confused all the time.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I think people get confused about is because of the military piece.
Right.
Veterans Day is honoring those who have served as well as has passed, but the majority of the time is to honor our veterans on that specific day, and as far as Memorial Day is to honor those who have gone before us, who have passed, who basically has given us the opportunity to do what we have been doing our lives, what you, Chuck, and Jim, and myself have been honored to consider the do for our country. So I think that's the real reason, or the basic differences between those two.
Junior, we met Clint Bruce back in 2015 when we had our show, and that's when we got involved with Carry the Load, and we were there, I think, in 2015, Chuck. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, I think it rained like unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
One of the things that Clint Bruce said was, I want to get away from Memorial Day being beer and hamburgers in the backyard. And everybody has lost sight of what we're trying to do. That's why I did Carry the Load. And I think that's so important, because at that time, I think the feeling in the country was like getting away from. It was good to get away from military, get away from honoring the military. That was an undercurrent. And I think that what Carry the Load has done, along with other organizations, is to bring back to the forefront the memory of the military and the relationship of the military to our communities. Couldn't you agree?
I will tell you. I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think to add to kind of that story is in 2011 or right before 2011. First of all, let me back up by telling you, I know Stephen and Clint extremely well. One, I was their football officer at the Naval Academy. I've known these gentlemen since they were 18 years old. And they're the kind of people that when they put something in their head, they go for it across the board. And Clint tells a story that the reason why Carry the Load even existed was on a Memorial Day. Everybody's kind of sitting around and everything, and he's getting antsy. And his bride, Amy, turned around and said, "Why don't you just go for a walk?" Not only did he go for a walk, but he turned around and put 10 pounds in the back of a rucksack of all the people he had lost. And actually, the rucksack was heavy and everything, and he kept walking and walking and walking. And for us in the military, you know, marching, walking is a way to kind of release that stress. Although some people will turn around and say marching was a real pain in the butt, but that's neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is, he started walking, and he came upon this studly veteran, an older gentleman, kind of like us now, but you know, back then. And he basically turned around and looked at him and said, "Hey, son, who you carrying?" And from that moment on was where Carry the Load started, because it, as he said, the pack became a little lighter, and I could feel the strength coming back from the partners that I had lost prior. And it's not just the military, it's our veterans, our first responders, and especially their families, because that's so important. As you well know, we turn around and go on deployment and stuff like that. We leave our loved ones behind. But the fact of the matter is, if they did not support us, we wouldn't have been able to do what we did. So Carry the Load, as you can see, is very dear and near to my heart. I've been there since the beginning, you know, and enjoy every moment of it.
And Junior, you're actually an ambassador with the Carry the Load program. Talk a little bit about your role with that, your relationship. And it's funny, every time I talk to you, I learn something different. Didn't know that you worked with the football program at Annapolis, so we'll do some stories offline about that. And I didn't realize Stephen Holly played football. I knew Clint did.
Yeah, Stephen was a quarterback at one point.
Oh, wow.
And did a few other things. I mean, Stephen is a stud in his own right too. Both of them are. I will tell you that it's understanding what we do and how we do it really becomes part of who we are. You know, and I'm sorry, Chuck. You asked a question and I kind of blew it off. But always,
I'm kind of used to you blowing me off, but you know, hey. Why should Saturday be any different?
Sorry.
Now, where I was going with that is I wanted to see if you would talk a little bit about your role as an ambassador. And we're actually going to wrap the show up sharing a story that you as an ambassador, once again, every time I hear you talk, I learn something new. But talk a little bit about your role as an ambassador and how that works with Carry the Load.
I was, well, like I said, I started, I've been with Carry the Load since inception. And one of the things that I loved is to be able to tell other people what that was all about. When they approached me about going to be an ambassador, I've gone out to different organizations, to different people and on shows and things like that. The advantage that I have is that I'm also bilingual. So not only can I tell the story in English, but I can also tell the story in Spanish, and have been interviewed by a considerable amount of networks, if you will, on the thing. being an ambassador is a way of kind of opening up and having people understand what Carry the Load is all about. And on top of that, it gives me an opportunity to tell people why Carry the Load is so important to me. Aside from being an ambassador, I am now part of the board of directors.
Oh, excellent.
And as you may or may not know, Chuck or Jim, since 2013, I have been the security for Carry the Load in Rivershon Park. Wonder why.
We're going to talk about that after we take our first commercial break, and we're gonna let you talk about your background and your history and what you're doing now.
Let's throw this out too. So people want to go and find out more about Carry the Load. What is the website? Where can they go? How can they participate? Can they sign up? Can they join us? Can they donate? What can they do? And where can they go, Junior?
Okay, first of all, the website is www.carrytheload.org. And as far as you can join us physically, you can donate, you can build a team. I will tell you, and I will tell everybody out there, the experience of being out there for the first time, to see the camaraderie with everybody, to see who shows up, and to walk. That right there will be a life-changing event for you. And it's not a race. It's not anything like that. It's an opportunity for you to meet others and remember,
now,
which is probably the best part.
Did they do this year the same as they did a couple of years ago, where they start a group on the West Coast and they start a group at the Naval Academy, and those groups are basically working their way towards Dallas? Are they doing that again?
Oh, yes, sir. As a matter of fact, one of the biggest things is that we now have, it used to be it used to be just two relays. And then we added a third one in the middle of the United States. Now we have one in New England, we have one in Minnesota, and we have another one in North Dakota. So yeah, it's grown.
These are relays that start, and the original one did start. It started started at West Point, up on the Hudson River, walked down through Annapolis, went to Atlanta, and took a right-hand turn before it showed up in Dallas.
Yeah, and in 2012. In 2012, it was East Coast, like I said, West Point to Dallas. In 2016, the West Coast route, which was from Seattle down to Dallas.
Yep. Thank you, David Vobora.
Yes.
He was instrumental in getting that started. Former football player for the Seattle Seahawks and founder of the Adaptive Training Foundation, which is one of the organizations that has partnered with Carry the Load. But one thing that I was really impressed with this year, there are 4 relays, and they are relays. It's not the same people walking the entire distance. Somebody asked me about that. I was like, no, they actually have different people that do it. But we're going to tie, I say we, and again, I use the royal we when I'm talking about our veteran service organizations, because by golly, and I sit here right now I'm so proud of my 10-year anniversary. Last year was the 10th year of Carry the Load, and I love the logo that they did. We continue to put on everything that we use, even though it's the 11th year. It's like, who's counting? But we're going to hit all 48 of the lower U.S. states. We're going to walk through those on these relays. So
that's exactly right.
And the beauty of our show is because we're national and international and all over the globe, and I understand there's some extraterrestrials that are picking us up in their spaceships that are hovering out of the galaxy. Although we don't cater to that crowd too much, but
well, there is Space Force today.
This is true. Right, the Space Force is going to go find those guys. I still can't get used to that. But what I was going to say is, if you're not in Dallas, or if you can't be in Dallas on Memorial Day weekend, you can participate in the relay literally everywhere across the nation. even if you just go out and take an American flag and wave at the relay marchers coming by.
Junior.
Yeah, and I want to add to that is that, like you said, we actually have anywhere between 48 and 50 rallies. Right now, it's grown to almost 70 rallies across the nation. And the best part about it is you go out there, you can go onto the website, as I said, www.carrytheload.org, and you can actually see the different places and everything else. But it's just going out there and seeing some people. Let me tell you, when we started this, we had a total of about maybe 100 people. Last year, we had almost 20,000 people show up.
Amazing.
In Dallas alone or across the nation?
No, I mean, that's in Dallas alone, we had roughly about 17. But throughout the nation, I mean, it's a funny story. One of the guys says I was walking out there the first time like 8 years ago, and I turned around and I had maybe like 10 people behind me. Today, last year, I walked and there were thousands behind me.
Junior, I think one of the things that's so important is not just about remembering, but it's therapeutic to all of us that are involved.
Oh, my God, yes.
I lost 12 pilots in North Vietnam. I had 5 POWs, including John McCain, as well, out of my squadron. And it's good to think about that. It's therapeutic. But I know guys who were really in country in Vietnam who suffered a great deal. And to be in this and to have the camaraderie and to be a part of this is a chance to kind of give up some of that stress. It is very, very therapeutic.
And to add to that, it's not just therapeutic in a sense, but it helps you remember. And I always tell everybody, as long as they're in your mind and in your heart, they will live forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I too have had my my share of losses. The one person that died in my arms, and this is what I usually tell when I'm an ambassador. He died in my arms, and for the longest time, he got buried in Memorial Day in Arlington Cemetery. When he was dying, he turned around and told me. First of all, he came up to me. He says, "Kiss me, you fool!" And I looked at him and I said, "Have you lost your mind?" And he basically turned around and says, "Junior, I'm dying. I just want you to do something for me. One is, I want to be buried in Arlington, and here I am, and E4. Of course, sure, no problem. He goes, no. But I want to be buried on a little bit of a hillside next to a tree so I can watch all the other clowns and make sure they stay in order." And I'm like, okay. No problem, Rock. No problem.
Junior, let's take a break for a commercial. When we come back, let's tell those stories and continue that story.
Yes, sir.
We're going to be right back after these words from all of our partners. You're listening to the Veterans Impact Show. I'm Jim Blythe and Chuck Wright, and we're joined by Junior Ortiz with Carry the Load. So we'll be right back after these words. Welcome back. You're listening to the Veterans Impact Show. I'm Jim Blythe, U.S. Navy veteran. Joining me, the one and only. Well, yeah, I mean to tell you, he's a hell of a Marine. So, Chuck Wright, and we've also got another great Marine who is a tremendous human being with Carry the Load, Junior Ortiz. Junior, thank you for being with us this morning. Let's continue the conversation. And you were telling a story about the Marine who died in your arms.
Yeah, it was one of those. He got shot pretty badly, and I had him in my arms and he told me, he said, look, I want you to do me two things. One, I want to be buried in Arlington. And of course, I was in E4 and I was like, oh, sure, no problem, no problem. I had no control over anything, but I figured, you know, my partner's dying. What am I going to say? No. And then he goes, I want to be buried next to a tree on a hillside overlooking all the other idiots to make sure I keep them in line. and of course I said, okay, no problem.
And he is in fact buried in Arlington.
Oh, well, even better. So he said, give me a kiss. And I looked at him like I had lost his mind, but I gave him a kiss on his forehead. And that's a very special thing for me because all my ATF guys and the athletes that we've worked with, when I see them, you know, I come up to them, give them a hug, and I always give them a kiss in the forehead to remember and to immortalize that you know, Rocky for what he did. Anyway, so as God is good all the time, and all the time God is good, as they say, and he was buried on probably one of the few trees in Arlington Cemetery, in a little hill overlooking all the other idiots, and on Memorial Day.
Wow, boy, that's a story. Now, where was he killed? What war?
Vietnam.
In Vietnam?
Tail end of Vietnam.
So you were in Vietnam?
Yes, sir. Tail end.
Yeah.
And so that's a great point. We're talking about carry the load, but I want our listeners to understand, and generally speaking, I give Junior a regular ration, and he gives it right back. But I want Junior to talk about the legacy of his Marine Corps career, because he has done some absolutely amazing things, and so kind of start us as you were part of Operation Frequent Wind, and talk about that. Talk about what you were doing in the Marine Corps, and carry us forward to how you got to where you are today.
I enlisted in the Marine Corps in '74 and figured there was a draft back then.
Yep.
And my draft number was 25.
I got you beat. Mine was 2.
And so
I got you both beat. I was drafted.
Yeah, exactly. So I decided, let me beat them to the punch. So I enlisted and, you know, went through all the rigmarole and everything else. Ended up being in San Diego or in Camp Pendleton area, and I was told, you know, you be a military policeman, blah, 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 you know, went through the whole entire deal. And then towards the tail end, they were asking for volunteers to be part of a unit that was going over, and I did, and I will honestly tell you guys, back then I didn't know my butt from my shoes, let alone anything else. You know, all I wanted to do was do something, and I had this grandiose idea that if I go over there, I'm going to be able to stop the war, just like any 18-year-old. Anyway, ended up going Operation Eagle Pull first, and then Operation Eagle Frequent Winds, Eagle Pull and Frequent Winds, both with a phenomenal, beautiful, tremendous man by the name of Colonel Jerry Berry, who was, you know, who kind of showed us the ropes, if you will. Anyway, came back, went to the different schools, and then ended up being going to the Middle East. Back in the Middle East, nobody even knew where Kuwait was. Nobody knew where any of those real places were, and I was the bodyguard, quote unquote, to Admiral Crow, who later on became he was the commander of Middle East forces on the USS LaSalle, and then later on became the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Well, we had a little incident in a place called Qatar, however you want to put it, And, you know, the old man decided that he was going to put me up for an award. And stupid me, stupid enlisted man, takes the award and then asks. Instead, I said, you know, sir, I don't want an award. But I will tell you one thing I want to do is I want to go to the Naval Academy. He said, well, let's see what we can do. You know, by that time I was getting on in my age, because you couldn't be no older than 21 of the year selected back then. Now it's 23. Anyway, the night before my 21st birthday, we got a teletype came in, and I got called up to the Admiral's quarters, and I walked in, and there's the Admiral, the Chief of Staff, the captain of the boat, the chief of the boat, and the chaplain. And he said, Junior, please sit down. We have a telegram for you. And the first thing I thought was, oh my God, my whole family has died. I said, okay. I sat down, and he gave me this letter, telegram, whatever. And I went to open it up. And I gave it to my partner, and I said, you read it. And he opened it up, he read it, and he looked at me straight face, poker face, and says, you got to read this. And now I'm really thinking that my whole family has been wiped off the face of the earth. I opened it up, and it says, congratulations, Mr. Ortiz, you've just been appointed to the United States Naval Academy.
Nice.
Isn't that great?
And I was like, crying like a damn baby. Anyway, end up going to the Naval Academy, end up being the oldest in my class, was there for 6 months, was there, and in the first 6 months, I turned in my resignation 6 times.
Wow.
Once a month. Because all I kept thinking was, you know, what the hell am I doing here? You know, I had money before, I was good looking, I could do whatever I wanted to do. Why am I here and getting yelled at by this 18-year-old punk? And every time I go into the commandant, he would take the letter and rip it up. And the last time that I went in there, he said, look, Junior, here's the deal. You're not going anywhere. Because the guy who appointed you is now the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff.
Wow.
You are stuck.
I said, okay, what the heck? So I went back, and I was boxing then, and I told my boxing mates, I said, I'm going to leave the academy. And they told me the greatest words I've ever heard in my life that motivated me directly. And they said, if you decide to leave the Naval Academy, we're going to kick your butt. Oh, okay. Well, you know, national champions who ready to knock me out for walking out the door, if you will. Anyway, long story short, I ended up graduating, went to the Marine Corps, went to pilot school, was a falling angel. I had an accident on my last solo. We won't get into that, but everything went well. I wanted to be the best helicopter pilot in the world, better than the guy sitting next to you. But that's neither here nor there.
All right, guys, let's tell you what let's do. Let's take a break and hear from our sponsors, and then we're going to come back, and I want to continue that story to talk about, man, I got to tell you, you got 3 pilots in the room. So let's come back in just a second after these words from all of our partners. You're listening to the Veterans Impact Show, and we are so grateful for Fairway Independent Mortgage, the company,
Texas Veterans Chamber of Commerce.
You bet, and all of those that support us. So we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back. This is the Veterans Impact Show. I'm Jim Blythe, and joining me, Marine Corps pilot Chuck Wright, and another pilot, Junior Ortiz, who's flying with Carry the Load.
There we go.
Oh, okay.
Flying with Carry the Load. And let me tell you, I will say this. I am the only one in the room or on the show with a pair of gold naval aviator wings.
Well, that is 100% true. I had to get out of the Navy to be able to go get my pilot's license. Yep. So I think mine are a real rusty, dusty kind of. But here's the other thing. I'm the only one of the 3 of us that's still flying.
Yep, that's absolutely true.
Amen to that.
And I got to tell you, I love going up in the air. Matter of fact, this afternoon, I'm going to be going up with my son because we've got a beach bonanza. But Junior, continue that story. That was a terrific story that you were telling us about. You kept trying to quit, and then you went and you graduated, and that was exciting. How did you, and you were a boxer, but how did you get involved in football?
Oh, that went on later on after I did my initial tour and everything else. Finished up and it ended up being in the air control squadron. Tactical air commander, tactical air command center, and so on. Did a few evolutions. That's when the Lebanon came around, and a few other items like that. And we'll discuss that later on. But then afterwards, I ended up going to Washington, D.C. and worked in a recruiting program for all the armed services. Went to Okinawa, Japan, and while I was in Okinawa, I get a call at 2:00 in the morning by some guy who started talking to me in English, and then all of a sudden started talking to me in Spanish. He started asking me all sorts of questions, and I'm thinking to myself, first of all, who the hell is this? And second of all, why is this idiot talking to me in Spanish? And then after about 50, because he said to me, he says, listen, Captain Ortiz, I'd like to talk to you about certain things, but I'm also going to talk to you in Spanish. Is that okay? And I'm like half asleep, so I was like, yeah, whatever. And then after talking to me for about half an hour, I heard him say, Admiral, does this meet your criteria? And next thing you know, another voice came on the thing and says, yes, very much so. Thank you, and hung up. And I got a call like an hour later saying, you're being looked at to go into the counter-drug forces. And I was like, okay. And then about 4 weeks later, I got orders to Key West, Florida, to be part of, back then was Joint Task Force 4, and later on became JIADA Thieves. Went through the whole thing and was there for about 6.5 months, helped to develop their SOPs, their standard operating procedures, and then I get a call on Christmas Eve by the Admiral asking me to come in and said, we need you down in Colombia. We need a person that speaks the language, understands the culture, has the background that you have both in Navy and Marine Corps, Army, Air Force, has a combination of working with all those different teams. And we need somebody down there ASAP. So I ended up going down there, and when I saw the ambassador, the first thing he says, you are now the counter-drug, counter-terrorist for all of Latin America. And I was like,
wow.
I am what? I can't even say that. And so I spent the next 2.5 years in country doing a few crazy missions here and there, and my team helped in the demise of Mr. Pablo Escobar.
Oh, that's incredible. One of the things that I think is so amazing is you were showing such leadership, and you got selected to do that and to go to South America. But one of the things you're doing right now is an assistant professor of leadership for the Hart Center at the Engineering and Leadership School at Southern Methodist University, better known as Simply Marvelous University, right? But your leadership, that came through. And was that something you learned in the academy? Did that bring that out in you?
Well, I got to tell you guys, yes, it honed it a lot better, but I'm a legacy Marine. As you can see behind me, you see some of the things that I have and everything else. Some of those are from my sons. My father was a Marine. As I always say, I am the son of a Marine. I am the brother of 3 Marines and 1 sailor. I am the father of 4 Marines.
So one black sheep in the family.
Hey.
Well, yeah. I also have an older son who was graduated from the Naval Academy. Also, went Navy P3s. He's probably the smartest out of all of us, but that's neither here nor there.
So he's flying the Orion then.
That's right. And so, I guess my leadership skills were pretty much born from the examples that I had growing up. And I've been extremely blessed, and I'm hoping and I pray that I continue to bless others in that same light. My 3 sons, my oldest son, and let me caveat this: my 3 sons are my adopted sons. My 4th son is my biological son, but my oldest of the 3 sons is now a regimental commander out in San Francisco, 27th Marines. My number 2 son was an F-18 pilot, and Danny was a P-3 pilot. Every one of my sons was enlisted before they became an officer.
Wow,
Every one of us.
I don't know if we talked about this. We were talking about this the other day at a carry the load function. But one of my great regrets, I went to school at Randolph, which actually on the air base in San Antonio. And I show up at officer candidate school after fiddling, fuddling my way through 5 years of college and not really having a lot of direction. And I hear a gentleman's name called Patolio Robert. Well, there aren't a lot of Bob Patolios in the world. It was a high school classmate of mine that I had not seen since graduation night. He enlisted, wound up ultimately retiring from the Marine Corps in 1974, just like you. So we are the same age. And I have always regretted not enlisting and not following that path.
Well, guys, let me tell you, my regret's even bigger. I'm 3rd generation Navy. Grandfather was career Navy. Father was Navy, both in World War II. I went into the Navy, thank God, and I was on aircraft carriers, and I was in naval aviation. So I had the opportunity to meet some really great people. But when I got out, and this is the point that I want to make, when I got out, I didn't realize, and they asked me, do you want to stay in the reserves? And I was like, no, I want to go back to college. Had I stayed in the reserves, and I went to college and I got my degree, I could have stayed in the reserves and I could have qualified for officer candidate school, and I could have gone back as an officer and been a reserve officer. I didn't know. And the point that I want to make today is what you don't know can hurt you. So I think we need to say to the families out there, go to the recruiters, find out what's available, find out what ROTC scholarships are available, find out what you are capable of doing, because the military is the greatest place, I think, for a young man or woman to start their career in life. It gives you discipline, it gives you camaraderie, it gives you strength, and it gives you absolute determination. What do you say about the Marines? You adapt,
Improvise, adapt, and overcome.
Absolutely.
And interestingly enough, that's a Hollywood expression that Clint Eastwood made up. Until he said it, the Marine Corps never said that. He said stuff similar to that. And it hit the nail on the head, but we've since adopted it, along with adopting crayons as our favored method of communication. But to continue your point, Jim, the one thing that I see, and my son is 18, his older cousin, they're very close. Recently, it was January of 2019, we got to watch him graduate from San Diego. So we'll talk about that offline, Junior, because we got to stay over in VIP quarters because my brother was the reviewing officer, and that was an incredible experience for us. But he is loving the opportunity. This is my nephew, my godson. He is loving the opportunity that the Marine Corps and that the military is giving him. Not to mention the fact that he'll serve 4 years, and if he doesn't want to serve another day, He'll have opportunities for college. He'll have all kinds of opportunities in life. And I see so many of these young people, and I know Jim does too, because Jim works with our Sea Cadets program, which is an offshoot, if you will, of our OTC programs. I see these kids out there, and worse, I see adults. They're in their 30s and 40s. They don't have the option to go back to serve in the military, to do something bigger than they were. And Junior, I have to say this, I didn't realize you had adopted 3 of your boys to create. If that was the only thing you had done, and it's not even close, but if that's the only thing you had done on the planet, for you to give those 3 young men an opportunity to have a life, I continue to be incredibly impressed by you. And I promise I will deny forever having said that.
You guys are Marines. You know, you kill me.
I got to tell you, you know, my sons, and let me caveat that whole entire thing is they're not adopted by name. I want you to understand that. You know, in my community, or in the Hispanic community, my grandfather, we owned a considerable amount of land, and you know, we had other people that worked the farm and everything else. We treated them, you know, because like they were part of our family. Whenever one of their kids messed up or anything, they were sent to the big house, which is where we lived, and they basically stayed on with us. And I remember one day, one guy showed up, and I asked my grandfather, who the hell is this clown? And he turned around, that clown is your brother. Oh, okay. Well, you know, I'm 7, 8 years old. I don't know any better. And then we end up, by the end of the year, because my grandmother also was a teacher and worked in the school system, so it was a way of kind of bringing them all together. At one time, we had six brothers and 1 sister in the house, and they were all my brothers and sisters. They weren't strangers, they weren't friends. So I kind of followed that same idea with these kids. These kids have their own parents, the whole 9 yards. We get we're very close to all of them, but I'll tell you how close they are to me, and you guys would appreciate this, is when it came time to take care of their RED, you know, their emergency data form, the person that shows up on there is me.
That says volumes, and that says volumes about where we need to be. We need to be standing up for those who need help. And that's one of the things.
The whole Jim and I are standing up right now.
Yeah.
It's just a lot more comfortable to broadcast.
Yeah, that chair was killing my back.
Hey, do we have another break coming up?
Yes, we do. I tell you what, let's go ahead and take that break right now so that we'll have a longer time towards the end. So
yeah, there's method to my madness.
I got to believe it. And we're having too much fun. So we're going to take a break to hear from all of our partners. This is Jim Blythe and Chuck Wright, and joining us, Junior Ortiz. We'll be right back after these words from all of our partners. Okay. Welcome back. This is the Veterans Impact Show. I'm Jim Blythe, U.S. Navy veteran. Joining me, 2 fantastic Marines. And I say that because I got in enough bar fights with Marines. I don't ever want to go that again. Junior, thank you for being on board.
Chuck, and Junior's even a boxer, so I'm going to have to be careful when I'm within arm's length of him of how much flack that I give him in the future.
I want to go back, though, for just a second, because Junior came on to talk about Carry the Load, a huge thing that we support. Chuck got me involved a lot of years ago. And I think this is very, very important, and this is very therapeutic. So one of the things I want to emphasize is get involved, plug in, join in, and be a part of that. And if you're struggling.
For our regular listeners, we will have a Veteran Impact Show team created this week, and we will have it out there. Huh? It's already created? Yeah. Have you got it up there on Facebook?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. So we're going to have a team. And we're putting together a whole bunch of teams for this. before we go to that, one of the things that was most interesting in your resume, one of the things that I learned today is you knew Clint Bruce and Stephen Holly, who are the co-founders of Carry the Load, but you knew them when they were playing football at the Naval Academy. And I should have known that Stephen was a pretty boy quarterback, while
No, don't go there. You know,
while Clint Bruce was.
He can still take you down. Don't forget that.
Not many people can't take me down today. It's been a few years. But Clint, and Clint is hilarious because you look at him and he looks like a great big, I mean, he looks like Shrek. He looks like a great big ogre.
Oh, he's a big guy.
He's a great big guy. He's a scary looking dude. But I tell you, you can't find somebody with a bigger heart and a nicer person, at least when they're not in a dark alley.
I would rather be with them. You know, we got together one time after Carry the Load with Jim Dolan and Clint Bruce, and I felt like the midget in the room.
Oh, my God. And Jim Dolan had played football at the Air Force Academy.
Right.
These two played football at the Naval Academy. Talk a little bit before we go into, and I want to end this, and I think Junior knows where I'm going.
Let's do one thing real quick, Chuck. Again, if you want to get involved with Carry the Load, go to www.carrytheload.org. Sign up, join up, be a part of it. If you can't, donate. And there are marches, is that a good word, Junior? All over the nation. Yep. We're covering all 50 states, correct?
48 states.
48 states.
Yeah, good luck walking from Hawaii.
Relays and everything else.
That would be real interesting.
That would be real interesting. but Todd, share a little bit about your experience with doing football with Clint and with Stephen and just at the Naval Academy, because I tell you what, there is nothing, and I guess it's partly as I've gotten older, there is nothing like watching the Army-Navy game. You're talking about the only game in America where everybody on the field is willing to die for everybody in the stands. But these guys play their hearts out, and I just talk about that a little bit.
So, when I told you that I was part of the counter drug forces, and I got a call telling me that, asking me, hey, where do you want to go next? And you know, nobody, by that time I had like 19 years in, and nobody had ever asked me in my Marine Corps career, where do I want to go? And so I named out a few places. And no. And then they said, how about if you had your dream job, where would you want to go? And within 2 seconds, I said the United States Naval Academy. And they said, what would you like to do there? I said, I want to be a professor. I don't want to be a company officer. I don't want to do anything. I want to be a professor. And within an hour, I got a call saying, how's your Spanish? Okay. So we're good. Because now you're going to the Naval Academy as a professor of Spanish and the assistant chairman of the department. I'm like,
wow.
Okay. Once again, didn't know my butt from my elbow, but I figured, what the hell? I could speak the language. Anyway, so I go to my first class at the Naval Academy, and inside of my class, I noticed that I have 24 students, and out of the 24 students, I have 12 football players. And I thought, this must be the rocks right here. And I had this thing about making sure that all the students that I had wanted to find out who they were, where they had come from, you know, what sport they played and everything else. And there was this one kid by the name of Chris McCoy. Now my son is sitting in my class.
Wow.
He's sitting in my class right in front of me. And I go, so Chris, what do you do? He goes, well, sir, I play football. And I looked at him and I said, what, do you play like lightweight football or something? And my son goes, Nate, "Hey." I looked down at him. He goes, "That's Chris McCoy. That's Navy football." And of course, me being me, oh, hell, Chris, I knew that. I was just testing you, just make, blah, 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 blah.
Junior's always been light on his feet.
Yeah, just in case. I had to kind of box and weave on that one. Anyway, so that afternoon, I went to practice. I went to their practice just to see who they were and everything else. And then I spoke to the officer representative, senior officer representative, who was my colonel. And I said, I would love to get involved with the football team. And he goes, funny you should say that, because there's an opportunity to be the officer representative for the JV team, which is basically the startup for the big team. But I also was able to travel and do whatever with the big guys. After a while, the colonel kind of liked the way my attitude was with the kids and everything else, and he kind of promoted me to be his sidekick, his aide, if you will. So here I am with them. Clint was a sophomore at the time, and in one of the events, he in one of the football plays, I think we were playing SMU, ironically enough. And he comes off the line, and he comes over, kind of strutting along and everything else. He had knocked down the quarterback and had really knocked his butt down badly. And he was kind of, being prideful and everything else. So I went up to him, you talk about Mutt and Jeff, Clint is up here and I'm here. And I grabbed him by his helmet and I pulled him down and I said, "Don't you ever do that crap again. You are supposed to represent who you are. And someday you may be leading this team. So God help you if you ever pull that again. Because if you do, you and me are going to have words." I remember, and the colonel came real close like this. And I remember Clint just kind of looking at me and going, "What?" But the respect automatically came from there.
Yeah.
And we talked about all sorts of things like that. And as they grew up, I grew up with these kids. I mean, I grew up with Stephen Hawley. I grew up with Clint Bruce. I grew up with the whole football team. Yeah. And to this day, I'm still very close with the majority of them, especially the ones that are here in Dallas, Texas.
So one of the things I want to do as we get close to wrapping up the show, I want to talk a little bit about what actually goes on at Carry the Load, but I'm going to tie this directly into something that Junior did, and I think he probably remembers that meeting that we had. But we do these relays across the nation, and all over the country there are rallies where you can go and attend, but the relays are marches, and teams of people will march for 2 miles or 5 miles, or the ambitious veterans will go for 10 miles, and then people like me will go for a mile and then head for the Katy Trail Ice House, and that'll become important in just a second. But we all converge on Dallas, and on Sunday we start out, and we start in Rivershawn Park. And it is this incredible sea of humanity, like you were saying last year, 17,000 people there. 17,000 of my closest friends that I invite for a Rivershawn Park party. And we basically what happens is we'll do a lap around the Uptown area. And one of the things we do that for is so you don't have this huge crowd, because then we'll march on Katy Trail. And all over, along the route, you will see these 2-foot by 3-foot placards, and each one, there's over 500 of them now, each one of them tells the story of somebody that we have lost. And so this is where I'm going with this, and Junior knows where I'm going. He talked about his adventure in Lebanon, and I'm going to let him tell that part of the story. But one of those, and he's a Naval Academy grad. He was my roommate at the basic school where all Marine officers get started. And we lost him in the bomb blast in Beirut. And so 4 or 5 years ago, and part of this I'm telling this story, so if you have somebody that you want honored that way, there is a process on the Carry the Load site where you can go and you can submit their story and a picture. And as you're walking these trails, we'll stop and we'll just read.
It's a hugely emotional thing,
Yeah.
Chuck. And I got to tell you, we're going to have to finish this up. Junior, we'd like for you to come back in the future because this is talking about something so important, bringing back Memorial Day.
Well, but what I was going to do is I wanted to have Junior finish that story about Lebanon and his role with our 241 Marine brothers.
You know, all I have to say is that I had the distinct honor of pulling out all those Marines, and it was one of the most. I hate to say it was a highlight of my life only because of the fact that even to this day I still remember. October 23rd will be a day that I will always remember in my life, and I had the distinct honor of bringing back a lot of Marines, and it just so happens that one of them was Willie. So,
all right, for Carry the Load, ask yourself, who are you going to carry and how can you help somebody? And if you are suffering from PTS or other things and you need to plug in, this is a great place to go. You need to know also the Veterans Crisis Line, 1-800-273-8255, 1-800-273-8255. Press 1 if you're a veteran. I like to close with a prayer. So, gentlemen, Lord God, we thank you for protecting our active duty military on earth and sky and sea, and those that are in the Space Force as well. Thank you for taking care of them. Thank you for taking care of our veterans, and thank you for being part of our program to help people today. This we pray and say thank you, God, for all you do for us. This is Jim Blythe.
amen.
Amen. And Chuck Wright with Junior Ortiz, Lieutenant Colonel Leadership. When we come back at another time, I want to talk more about your leadership.
Colonel, not Lieutenant Colonel.
Okay, Colonel. Sorry, because I had...
No.
All right.
Go there.
This has been a great day. Thank you for being part of the Veterans Impact Show. Join us on Facebook. Be on our YouTube as well. We're all here for you. And join us on the Carry the Load team. Thank you. Have a great day. And thank you for being part of the Veterans Impact Show.
Take care. God bless y'all.
God
Love
bless
you,
you.
brother.
Love you, brothers.